Handicapper Steve here, handicapping the racing from Churchill Downs here on Saturday. It is May the 6th, 2017. I'm going to look at all the stakes races on today's program from Churchill, including race number 12, which is the Kentucky Derby. But before I get on to that, remember to please follow me on Twitter at HorseRacingKid5 for more selections for race courses around the world. And join me on YouTube for my separate video for the 2,000 guineas from Newmarket for that preview video. The Kentucky Derby this year looks like it's going to be one of the better derbies. The last few years we've had so many favorites win, and this year it looks a little bit, I think a price can come in, and it's going to be a great race. But before I get on to that, remember to please follow me on Twitter at HorseRacingKid5 for more selections for race courses around the world. Cannot stress that enough. You have to follow me on Twitter. But the races I'll be looking at are races 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So races 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the featured 12th race, which is the Kentucky Derby. And stay tuned. I know this video is a very long video, but in the Kentucky Derby portion of this video, I'm going to go through every single horse and tell you what I like about them and what I don't like about them. And I'll give you my plays and what I'll be doing with these picks I have. But let's get on to it. I'm going to start with the undercard race 6 now. The 6th race from Churchill is the 31st running of the Humana Distaff, Grade 1, purse $300,000. It's your fillies, mares, 4-year-olds, and upwards. We have a field of 7 horses going the distance of ground of 1,400 meters for our international viewers, or 7 furlongs here on the main track at Churchill. I show this diagram. It gives me a second to look down in my notes, so just bear with me. Have quite a few notes today to look at, and plus some of our international viewers might not know what 7 furlongs looks like at Churchill, but the 7 furlongs here, 1,400 meters, great race. My top pick in this one, I like the number 6 horse, Lightstream. I'm going to go 6-7-2-5 in the superfecta, 6-7-2-5 super, but number 6, my top pick, Lightstream. 5-1, Javier Castellano is on this Brian Lynch trained 4-year-old filly out of Harlan's Holiday. Looking over these races, Friday at Churchill is a very wet day. We're going to get a bit of a wet track, I think, on Saturday also. Last I saw in the forecast, there is going to be some rain in and out on Saturday. So handicap for a little bit of some moisture in the courses. But this horse has never run on a wet course, but I think she should handle it. This horse is making her first start since 26th of December. That came at Santa Anita Park, 7 furlongs and Grade 1 La Brea. This horse finished 5th by 8.5 lengths. Was a heavy favorite that day, just under 2-1, but didn't show up at all. Constellation ran a hell of a race that day, won 2 in a row, and this horse just really wanted to go. And Julien Leperoux, who rode this horse that day, did not want to let this horse go. So she kind of weakened out of it. Wasn't her best of starts, but start before October the 22nd at Keeneland, 7 furlongs and a Grade 2 Ravens run. Horse won by 1/4 lengths that day. Sat back early, but closed up like an express train at the end. Really had a good move. Very nice victory at 5-2. And then the test stakes, Grade 1 test at the spot, Saratoga, August 6th, 7 furlongs. Horse finished second by 3/4 length. Closed up a little bit that day, but just needed that little extra kick to get her over the final, 16th of a mile. Didn't have it that day. I expect her to run a big one here today. She can, if she wants to, sit a little bit closer. Last 2, she was far out of it, but I expect her to sit a little bit closer today. She gets Javier Castellano for the first time. That shouldn't be a problem. This horse last year ran some very nice races. The Raven Run was a very nice race. She won the Beaumont at Keeneland last year very nicely by 3/4 length. And Burko Maiden in Gulfstream Park last year very nicely by 2 1/4 lengths. I expect her to run big here today. Watch out for this one. So to recap my bets for the 6th from Churchill, it's the 31st Humana Distaff. Going to go with the 6 horse, Lightstream. I'm going to go 6-7-2-5 in the superfecta. So now let's get on to race number 7 from Churchill. The 7th race is the 32nd running of the Churchill Distaff Turf Mile, presented by Longines. It's a Grade 2 race here, going for a purse of $300,000. It's for fillies and mares, 4-year-olds, and upwards. Field of 8 horses going the distance of ground of 1,600 meters on the turf course, or 1 mile. 1 mile. And This is the turf course with all the rain they've been getting this week. You don't really want to be on the inside near the hedge because the water drains towards the hedge. Jerry Bailey had it perfectly in yesterday's NBC Sport broadcast of the races. You want to be somewhere in the 5 or 6 path, and I have a horse that's right in that path, and that's going to be the 6th horse, number 6, who is Roca Rojo. I'm going to go 6-7-2-8 in the superfecta, 6-7-2-8 superfecta, but my top pick, number 6, Rocco Roja. 3-1. Florent Giroux is on this Chad Brown trained 5-year-old mare, Strategic Prince. This horse is making her first start of the year. Most recently at the Del Mar, 1 mile on the firm turf course, and December the 4th in the Grade 1 Matriarch. Horse finished second by a nose that day. Closed up well at the end from being far out of it early. Wasn't a half bad race, but Miss Temple City, who's running back in this one today, just had her nose in front, but it wasn't a half bad race. It was a very nice second place finish. Had a 100 buyer speed figure for that race. Start before at Belmont Park, October the 23rd, on a very soft inner turf course, mile 16th in the Grade 3 Athenia. Horse won by 3 1/4 lengths that day. Broke from the inside, was a little bit wide in the far turn, but took off clear. Very nice victory for this horse that day on that very wet turf course. We'll see something very similar like that today, so that's very nice run. And then start before on a good turf course at Belmont, 1 mile, an optional 80 claimer. Horse went by 1.5 lengths. Easy victory. She stepped down in class from her start before, which was in the De La Rosa at Saratoga. She didn't do that well that day, but she won next start out. She won the Athenia. She ran a very decent second place finish in the Matriarch. I think she should run a big one here today. She's in a perfect post draw for this wet turf course. Watch out for this one to run a big one. So to recap my bets for race number 7 from Churchill, it's the 32nd Churchill Distaff Turf Mile. Gonna go with the 6th horse here, Roca Rojo. Gonna go 6-7-2-8 in the superfecta, 6-7-2-8 in the super. Now let's get on to race number 8 from Churchill. The 8th race from Churchill Downs is the 93rd running of the Pat Day Mile, Grade 3, purse $250,000. It's for 3-year-olds. Field of 13 horses going the distance of grounds of 1,600 meters or 1 mile on the main track at Churchill. This race used to be formerly known as the Derby Trial, run the week before the Derby, and in the past 10 years when they had the Derby Trial, the last horse to do anything in the Derby Trial and then do something in the Derby was Don't Get Mad in 2005, I believe, but after that, no horse really did anything, and, they changed the name in honor of Pat Day and moved it to Derby Day. It was the kind of race they needed for Derby Day. They were missing another 3-year-old race for milers, and this is a good one. It's a bit of a tricky race. I like the 8 horse Wild Shot, but I'm gonna give you out a superfecta play, and I wouldn't be surprised if any of the 4 horses I have in my superfecta win. I'm gonna go 8-4 11-1, 8-4 11-1 in my superfecta, but my top pick, number 8, Wild Shot, 4-1. Corey Lannery for George Arnold, who trains the Strio Colt at a trap shot. He's making his third start at Churchill in his lifetime, but most recently on April 8th at Keeneland, a mile and 8th in the Grade 2 Bluegrass. His horse finished 7th by 15 lengths that day. He just didn't show up. He set the pace early on, then hit the wall on the stretch, gave away, wasn't his day to win. He's coming back to a mile, which I think this horse will really like a lot. It doesn't have the best draws from the 8 hole, but he's going to have to save some ground, and if he saves some ground and goes closer to the rail, I think he could do something big today. Start before Tampa Bay Downs, mile 16th, March 11th in the Grade 2 Tampa Derby. Horse finished 3rd by 6 lengths that day. Was very wide that day. Closed up a tiny bit at the end, but it wasn't a lot. He's just passing some tired horses. And then the Sam F. Davis at Tampa Bay, mile 16th, February the 11th, that Grade 3 race. His horse finished 4th by 3.5 lengths. Had the lead in stretch and then kind of weakened out of it, was just off the pace early on, but he just really wasn't himself. Like I said, come to one turn today, I think he should have a very good run. He has the opportunity. He could set the pace if he wants to, or he could sit just off it. I expect him to sit just off it, but he has to save ground. That's the key to this horse's victory today. He's gonna have to find a way to save ground, and Corey Lannery, he knows the circuit very well. He's been a leading rider here at Churchill before, and he's a great veteran. So I'd like like this horse here as a top pick, so to recount my bets for the 8th from Churchill, it's the 93rd Pat de Mile. Gonna go with the 8 horse Wild Shot. I'm gonna go 8-4, 11-1 in the superfecta. To race number 9 from Churchill now here on Derby Day. The 9th race is the 26th running of the American Turf, presented by Ram Trucks. Grade 2 purse $300,000. It's for 3-year-olds here. Field of 11 horses going the distance of ground of 1,700 meters or 1 mile and 1/16 on the main track. Or on the main turf course, main turf course, mile 16th. What am I saying? Going mad with all these Derby stuff. Mile 16th on the turf here. Another race where you want to draw a little bit outside. You don't want to be on the rail or the hedge on this one with the wet turf course. I'm going to go to the 4 horse Oscar Performance. I'm going to go 4-9, 5-10 in the superfecta. 4-9, 5-10 super. But my top pick, number 4 Oscar Performance. 7-2 Kitten's Joy sired 3-year-old Ridgeling, who's trained by Brian Lynch, ridden by Jose Ortiz. This horse had a terrible start a few weeks ago at Keeneland, about a month ago, April the 7th at Keeneland, mile 16th in the Grade 3 Transylvania. This horse finished 5th that day by 3 lengths. He broke slowly that day. Jose Ortiz rode this horse, quarter-horsed this horse to try to get to the front. He didn't get the lead that day, and he used so much of the horse going into the first turn to the 5.5 furlongs from home pole. And he just didn't have a lot left in the tank for the final furlong. Also, it was his first start off the layoff, so maybe he just needed the race. He's getting first-time Lasix today, which I think should help. It doesn't kill to give a horse Lasix, especially when they're legal here in America. I don't support to give horses Lasix on race day, but when you're in a country that has it, or you can give it to them, and you have to, it should be okay. But I do like what they do in everywhere else in the world where they ban race day Lasix. That's why I think the other horses that are outside America are better. But back to this horse, they're giving it Lasix today. Maybe that could help this horse do a little bit better. But I think second off the layoff, this horse will run a very bang-on race. Start before on November the 4th at Santa Anita, 1 mile on the in the Brews Cup Juvenile Turf. This horse won by 1 1/4 lengths that day, and just sat off the pace that day. Got the lead in the stretch and took off clear. That turf course was playing towards front runners that day, and this horse took advantage of it. Great ride by Jose Ortiz to get this horse from the 13 hole, basically the parking lot, get him over and save some ground. He did very well that day. Great ride by Ortiz, probably one of his best rides of his career. He just ran incredibly well. And then start before a very wet turf course at Belmont Park, yielding going, mile 16th on the inner turf course in the Grade 3 Pilgrim. Horse won by 6 lengths, on the lead all throughout, had an extra gear in the stretch run. Easy victory. He's proven he could win from with running from the parking lot and outside post draw. He proved he could run on a very wet turf course. Second off the layoff with Lasix for the first time. I think this horse should have a major improvement off his last start, so watch out for this one. So to recount my bets for the 9th from Churchill, it's the 26th running of the Grade 2 American Turf. Going to go with the 4 horse Oscar Performance. I'm going to go 4-9, 5-10 in the superfecta. To race number 10 now from Churchill Downs. The 10th race is the 83rd running of the Churchill Downs Stakes, presented by TwinSpires.com. It's a Grade 2 race here, going for a purse of $500,000. It's for 4-year-olds and upwards. We have a very large field of 14 horses going the distance of ground of 7 furlongs here, or 1,400 meters for your international viewers. 7 furlongs. My top pick in this one, I like the number 1 horse. Number 1, Awesome Slew. I'm going to go 1927 in the superfecta. 1927 super. But my top pick, number 1, Awesome Slew. 4-1. Joel Rosario is on the Smart Casse train. 4-year-old colt had him Awesome Again. This horse has, with Awesome Again as desired, this horse has some classic pedigree, classic distance pedigree. But I think he should do a little bit better sprinting to a 1 turn. Most recently, the 8th of April, Keeneland, 7 furlongs in the Grade 3 Commonwealth. Horse won by 1.5 lengths, was 3-1 that day, and came from the clouds to win. But he did have a bad break. He kind of brushed the gate. He hit the gate going out of the gate. So keep that in mind. If he could break a little bit better, he should run it very well. And, on a wet course, you want to stay towards the rail. This horse has a good good post draw. Start before on February the 11th at Gulfstream Park, 1 mile in the Gulfstream Park handicap. Horse finished second by 4.5 lengths that day. He closed up very well at the end of the race. Wasn't a half bad race at all closing up. He improved next start out. That was his first start going back to one turn in quite a while. Like I said, before that they were running this horse at 2 turns, and he's not a 2-turn horse, I don't think, according to his running line. He finished third in the Sunshine Millions Classic back at Gulfstream last year. Finished third in the Harlan's Holiday, 5th in the PA Derby. He won the Smarty Jones. That was a mile 16th, but that was against nobody. But he did break from the parking lot post 14 to win that day. He finished 6th in the Haskell on a very sloppy racetrack, and the 3rd in the Pegasus at the Monmouth Park, the local prep for the Haskell. But I think here today, cutting back in distance from the rail, he should do well, and he's kind of versatile. He could sit back, or he could, sit a little bit closer. I think this horse might be sitting a little bit closer than he did his last few starts. I think this horse will run well here today, so he'll be my top pick in this one. So to recap my bets for the 10th from Churchill Downs, it's the 83rd running of the Churchill Downs Stakes. Going to go with the one horse Awesome Slew. I'm going to go 1927 in the superfecta. To race number 11 now from Churchill. The 11th race is the 31st running of the Woodford Reserve Turf Classic. It's a grade 1 race here, going for a purse of $500,000. It's for 4-year-olds and upwards. Field of 12 horses going the distance of ground of 1 mile and 1/8, or 1,800 meters on the turf course. 1,800 meters, 1 mile, 1/8 turf course. And this is a bit of a wide open race. I'm thinking of playing, because it is 2:30 in the afternoon on Oaks Day. I'm thinking of playing an Oaks Woodford Derby pick 3, and in the Derby, in the Oaks, I like Farrell, and I think Paradise Creek might run a big one, so I'll use those two for sure. Maybe Miss Sky Warrior. This race, this is the kind of race you want to go too deep, or go deep, or just single. I like the 8-horse Beach Patrol. I'm going to go 8327. 8327 superfecta, but my top pick, Beach Patrol. Now, going back to that pick 3, I think the Beach Patrol I'll definitely use. Now, here's the thing. Do I want to use Oscar-nominated and Diversadero? Those are two very nice horses. It just depends on my ticket cost, because I don't like giving out very expensive tickets. Plus, I'm a broke college student. I can't afford it. That's why I'm giving out superfecta plays, but I'm not going to be playing them because I cannot afford $1 superfecta plays. I prefer the 10-cent supers because, I'm a broke college student. But, this is the kind of race. Do I want to go 3 deep, single, or do I want to go, even deeper than 3 deep? It's just a difficult race, but definitely I'll be using the 8-horse Beach Patrol, my top pick, 5-1. Florent Giroux, Chad Brown trains his 4-year-old colt out of Lemon Drop Kid. Lemon Drop Kid did win the 99 Belmont Stakes, but he sires some very nice turf horses, and this horse has a nice, some nice races under his belt. Most recently, the 11th of February at Gulfstream Park, mile 8th in the Gulfstream Park Turf Handicap. I said nice races under his belt. Not this one. He finished second that day by 3/4 length, was on the lead early on, and then kind of dueled towards the later portion of the race. But he was drifting a little bit that day, and he came out to bump a rival. They had to disqualify him to place 4th. It wasn't an ideal disqualification, but he should run a little bit better here today. Start before Del Mar, mile 8th, December 3rd, in the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby. So horse finished second by 1.5 lengths. Almost had the lead in the stretch, and I think he actually just narrowly got the lead around the 16th pole, and then he got caught right before the wire. He kind of hangs a little bit. He has to settle down. When he gets the lead, he has to keep going. He can't stop. He kind of reminds me of Main Sequence. Everybody used to say Main Sequence. When he got the lead, he used to think his job was done and stop. But he has to keep going. This horse has to keep going like Main Sequence. Start before in the Hill Prince at Belmont, mile 8th, the inner turf course, October the 8th. A race course, the inner turf course at Belmont is placed towards speed. This horse finished second by a head that day. Had to lead in the stretch, but just got caught right before the wire because he hung a little bit. He can't, like I said, he can't hang. He did win the Secretary Secretariat at Arlington over the summer against some very tough European invaders and some very tough American turf 3-year-olds. This horse won by head and had the lead and just held on that day. Kind of hung, but he didn't hang that bad. He finished third in the Belmont Derby, and he finished sixth in the Penn Mile. Ran over this turf course last year in the American Turf, the race for the 3-year-olds. He finished second by a head that day. That was when he was previously trained by Phil D'Amato. Camelot Kitten won, next start out, won also, but this horse a little bit wide, got the lead in the stretch, and then Camelot Kitten just overtook this horse. He hung again. They have to figure out to make sure this horse does not hang. If he doesn't hang and he could keep going, he should do well. I think he's going to run a big one here at 5-1 off the layoff. So watch out for this one. So to recap my bets for the 11th race from Churchill Downs, it's the 31st Woodford Reserve Turf Classic. Going to go with the 8-horse Beach Patrol. I'm going to go 8-3. 2-7 in the superfecta. So now let's get on to race number 12, the Kentucky. Race number 12 from Churchill, it's the big one. It's the 143rd running of the Kentucky Derby presented by Yum Brands. It's a grade 1 race here going for a purse of $2 million. It's for 3-year-olds. Field of 22 3-year-olds, but only, remember, 20 can run. So the 21 and 22 are also eligible. They are going the distance of ground of 1.25 miles, 2,000 meters on the main dirt. 1.25 miles. And this is a great race. To keep in mind, the track record is 159-2. Secretariat set that in this race in 1973. But we have some very nice horses teaming up to run in this one today. Very talented group, and it's a very wide open race, I think. I'll give you my top 4 here, but I'll also give you, I'm probably going to go 10 deep in the multi-race wagers, because I'm going to play the Oaks Derby double. I might play the Oaks Woodford Derby triple, and I might play the pick 4, but I would go deep in this one because I think you give at least a half the field. I think they all have a chance. My top pick, I'll give you 2 horses as top picks here. I like as both the top picks. Drum roll, please. I like the number 5 horse, Always Dreaming, as a top pick. I think he'll run a big one. And I also like the number 10 horse, Gunnavera, as a top pick. I think he'll run a much of an improvement off his last one. But here's a straight 10-cent super, my straight top 4 of this race. I like the number 5 horse. I like the number 10 horse. As a long shot play, I like the number 4 horse, and I like the number 17 horse. So I like the 5, 10, 4, 17. Along with those 4 horses, the horses I'll be using in my multi-race wager leg, I'll be using the 2 horse, the 14 horse, the 15 horse, and the 19 horse. But let me give you my thoughts on every horse in this race. Starting off with the number 1 horse, Looking at Lee. I don't have him on my ticket. If I play like a super high 5, I would use him for 4th or 5th, maybe. Because he's a closer, and this is one of the horses that really wasn't screwed by the 1 hole, because he is a closer, so he doesn't have to go straight to the lead. He could drop back, which I expect him to do, but his races have a late. He had a decent 3rd place finish in the Arkansas Derby after traffic trouble, but he just doesn't. He's not a. I don't think he's good enough to win here today. He's a closer, but he's just not good enough in my eyes. I don't think he'll do anything. Thunder Snow I do have on my as a few plays in my multi-race wagers. He'll be on those tickets. Gets Christophe Simio coming in from France to ride this horse for Saïd Bin Suroor for Godolphin. Godolphin never won this race, but they want to win this race so badly. He did win the UAE Derby a few weeks ago at Maidan, mile through 16ths on the mud. He won it by a nose, and the 2nd place finisher, Efarius, the Japanese invader, he had the lead about a 16th on the wire, but this horse fought back and won by a nose. He just sat off the pace that day, and he got the lead coming back that day. I expect him to sit just a little bit off the pace. He's going to be in perfect striking zone to really have a good closing kick. He has the rail, which you want on a wet course. You never know. This might be the best chance for a UAE Derby winner to win the Kentucky Derby, because he's very nice and he has some very tough races under his belt. He did win the 2000 Guineas very nicely as a heavy favorite, but I want to go back to October the 30th of last year. That came in France at Saint-Cloud. 7 furlongs in the Criterium Internationals, very tough Group 1 race in Europe. He won by 5 lengths that day, beating some very tough horses. He was just off the pace, but got the lead and took off clear. I'm very excited about Christophe Simeon riding this horse. He knows this horse the best. He could he'll know if anything's wrong. If he gets a good, clear advantage to the lead or just off the lead and has a good run in the stretch without some traffic trouble, watch out for this one to maybe win at the end. So I'll use him on my ticket, in my multi-race wager ticket. The 3-horse Fast and Accurate, 50 to 1, Channing Hill. His best races have come on synthetic and turf. His dirt races have been awful. I don't see him running anywhere. He did win the Spiral, but, he's just, his dirt races have been subpar. I don't think he's going to do anything. The 4-horse Untrapped, I have him third. He's my long shot play of the Derby. He's at 30 to 1, Ricardo Santana Jr. If you throw out the Arkansas Derby, he's had a very nice race other than the Arkansas Derby. They had blinkers on last time out for the first time. That came in the Arkansas Derby, a mile and 8th at Oaklawn. He finished 6th by 5 lengths that day with Mike Smith up. It was a little bit wide that day and really weakened out of it. I'm just going to blame that on the blinkers. Getting no blinkers today. When he did not run with blinkers, he ran okay. He ran the Arkansas and Arkansas again at Oakland, a mile 16th in a grade 2 Rebel. He did finish 3rd that day by 2 lengths. Had them lead a little bit, or had second in the stretch and lost to Sunster. He kind of hung a little bit, but I think he is a perfect poster. He could sit just off the pace again today, and he could if he could be free in the stretch, I could see him closing up at the stretch. He's only won once. That was locally, and that was a very nice victory by 5 1/4 lengths sprinting. He's been up there in the prep races. Watch out for this horse to maybe run a big one with blinkers off today. The next horse, number 5, Always Dreaming, one of my top selections here. 5 to 1, John Velazquez for Todd Pletcher. This duo who's been around, Todd Pletcher, John Velazquez, have been duoing for the past 20 years at least. They never won a Derby together. They both won one separately, with Pletcher winning it with Super Saver and with Borrell in 2010, and the year later John Velazquez won it with Grand Motion and Animal Kingdom, but they never won one together, and I think this might be their best shot. This horse, Always Dreaming, had a very nice run in the Florida Derby a few weeks ago at Gulfstream Park, mile 8th, April the 1st. This horse won by 5 lengths that day. Just sat off the pace early on, got the lead on the backstretch and around the far turn, and took off clear. It was a little bit wide, but he had a clear victory without a lot of whip tapping. I expect this horse to be right behind the leaders, maybe 4th or 5th today, maybe even 3rd going into the turn. He has a perfect draw to get a good clear trip. I think he should run big one here today. He's out of Bodemeister. Bodemeister nearly won the Derby in, I believe, 2012, but he got overtaken by I'll have another that day, but Bodemeister ran one of the best mile and 8ths of the Derby. I could see this horse just sitting off the pace. I think he should run a big one here today. Because before that Florida Derby, he ran pretty well. He won. He's 3 for 3 so far in his last 3 starts. He won an optional claimer going a mile and 8th at Gulfstream, and won the just a basic main special weight at Tampa Bay going a mile 40 yards by 11.5 lengths. I think he's going to run a big one here today. The running pattern for him suits this race, so watch out for this one. I also, I think he's going to run the big one here today, and he's been working out very nicely, so watch out for this one. The 6-horse State of Honor with Jose Lozano from Marquese, he might be up with the leaders today. He set the pace in the Tampa Bay Derby and the Sam F. Davis, but really weakened out of it. I think this horse will be a little bit of a better one-turn horse. I don't see him winning here today, and, he'll do a little bit better up in Canada, I think, also, because he likes to Tapeta. Maybe you'll see this horse in a few months and the Queen's Plate, because he is an Ontario bred, but I just don't see State of Honor winning. The number 7 horse, Gervin, 15 to 1, Mike Smith. This horse is another horse. I believe he has a quarter crack or something wrong with his hoof, and he did win the Louisiana Derby and Risen Star very nicely, but the hoof thing is just really... you never know what it's going to do. That scares me a little bit. If he wins, okay, I'll admit, I was wrong about the not picking him. But it's just he has too many questions for me with that hoof injury. He was basically unchallenged in the Louisiana Derby, I think, in my eyes. But I just don't think he's going to show up today. The number 8 horse, Hence, Steve Asmussen trained horse, Florent Giroux at 15 to 1. This horse won the Sunland Derby very easily, but it was a subpar field. It was a little bit wide that day. It's just, but before that, he didn't do anything. He'll be closing if he does anything at the end. I don't think he'll do anything. I picture him finishing 14th to last. I just don't think he'll do anything. The number 9 horse, IRAP, 20-1 Mario Gutierrez, won his maiden last time out in the Bluegrass, which is weird to say, but he won by 3/4 length, almost on lead all throughout, and just held on. He's bred to go the distance. His daddy won the Classic here, the British Cup Classic here in 2000, and ran incredibly well. But he just has some questions for me. He didn't do anything in the Sunland Derby. He didn't do anything in the Mind That Bird Derby. Didn't do anything in Robert B. Lewis against some tougher horses. Last time out, he went straight to lead, which kind of helped. But I just don't see this horse doing it today. I personally believe he's not going to do anything, so he won't be on my tickets at all. The number 10 horse, who is Gunnavera, he's a co-top pick for me. 15-1 Javier Castellano. Javier Castellano is probably one of the best riders in North America today, of the past 5 years or so. He probably gave, and I hate to criticize something I can't do, but he probably gave one of the worst rides I've ever seen a jockey give in the Florida Derby for Gunnavera. Going a mile and 8 that day in the Florida Derby, he finished third by 6.5 lengths, but from the outside 10 stall, he took, right out of the gate, he took this horse straight to the rail, and I think that's where he lost the race. He lost the race in the first 3 feet or so, and this horse closed up like an express train at the end, but he was taken back out of it. It just wasn't it just was a horrible ride in my eyes. I think today, from the 10 hole, it's a perfect draw for this horse. He could sit, I think he'll sit a little bit closer today, maybe 7th or so, not so, I don't think he'll be like last going into the turn, but I think he'll sit a little bit closer today, and I could see him closing up a little bit at the end. He's kind of versatile. He think if he can go up with the pace setters, but like I said, I think he'll be just off the pace, like 7th or 8th, somewhere around there. But before the Florida Derby, this horse won the Fountain of Youth very nicely. He finished second in the Holy Bull, closing up a little bit at the end behind Irish War's Cry. He also won the Delta Jackpot very nicely, closing from the back of the pack. Finished 5th in the Breeders' Futurity, but he just had a horrible trip that day. I think he getting Castellano again, who's a very good rider, never won this race though. I think he'll learn from the mistake last time out and give this horse a better ride, and bring him into competition. Also, that lace turn of foot in the Florida Derby was very, very, very nice and very encouraging. Watch out for this one to really run a big one here today at 15-1. Do I personally think you're going to get 15-1 on this horse? No, I think it'll go off more towards 8-1 or somewhere around there. The number 11 horse, Battle of Midway, 30-1 Flavian Pratt for Jerry Hollendorfer. This horse really showed up last time out of the Santa Anita Derby at Santa Anita Park, mile 8th, on April 8th. This horse finished second by a half length behind Gormley. Those Southern California 3-year-old Derby prep races, they weren't really that good. It was the slowest Derby prep out of all of them. They crawled home in 151 flat for that race. This horse, he'll have to do a lot to win the Derby. I think he's just running a little bit too fast, too quickly. Maybe if he goes back to California, I think it's just too early to run him in the Derby. I don't think he'll do anything. The number 12 horse, Sinister, at 50-1. If I could bet a horse to finish last, I think it might be this one. He's a maiden still. He finished 4th in the Arkansas Derby last time out. Closed up a little bit from the back of the pack, but had a little bit of traffic trouble. But he'll have to see a very good pace meltdown to get anything. Again, he finished second in the Rebel, closing up from the back of the pack at 112th run. But he didn't have the best of starts and had traffic trouble. Finished second in Santa Anita, going 7 furlongs. He finished third in the maiden special weight, 4th in the Cal Derby. Okay, I have to say his last 2 were okay, but he'll just have to do a lot to win. I don't think he'll do. I just don't see him winning here today, so he's not a use for me. The number 13 horse, J Boys Echo, another horse I wouldn't use. He finished 4th in the Bluegrass last time out. He just hung. He didn't do anything. Had a horrible race, traffic, bumps. It just wasn't his day to win. He did win the Gotham very nicely, sitting a little bit closer that day, but I don't think he'll be close. I don't think he'll be getting an easy closer to the lead today. He's gonna be facing tougher horses. I don't think he'll do anything. The number 14 horse Classic Empire, reigning Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner from last year, who won it very nicely by a neck. I think he could run a big one, but he's always he's a very quirky horse. Julian Leperoux rides his horse, never won a Derby. Mark Casse never won a Derby, but he's out of Pioneer Nile, who's the favorite, I believe, in the 2009 Derby. But most recently, at the April the 15th at Oakland, a mile and the 8th in the Arkansas Derby. This horse won by half length, closed up from the mid pack that day, just got up there, but it was a great ride by Julien Leperoux to get this horse to the victory. After that, he's been training pretty nicely at the training center and at Churchill, but he's a very quirky horse. To first start, he refuses to work a few times. He doesn't, he missed a start because of some foot injuries, like an abscess or like a sore on his foot, and he just his first start of the year in Holy Bull was a disaster. He finished third by 8 3/4 lengths. Sat third most of the race, had nothing. Maybe he just wasn't ready to run that day, but he was ready to run last time out. He's been a little bit too quirky to put him on my ticket, but he would, if I had to put him on my ticket, he would be the 5th horse as my top 4 or my top 5. If I had to give you all the horses I'm using in order, he'll be the 5th horse. But other than Holy Bull, he's been pretty good. He won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, won the Breeders' Futurity, but this is where the quirkiness comes out again. Last year in the Grade 1 Hull Fall, as a 2-year-old Saratoga, 7 furlongs, September the 5th, his horse didn't finish that day. At the start, this horse broke it out, lost Irad Ortiz, who rode him that day. It just wasn't his day to win. The winner, that's a Practical Joke, won next start out also, was running back into this one. But, he's just a quirky horse. Julien Leperoux was supposed to ride that horse that day, but if you remember, he did break, I believe, his arm or something like that or he broke something, or he was injured at the end of July or early July and he had to miss that start for this horse at Saratoga. But, this horse, he's quirky, but we'll see which horse shows up tomorrow. Will he show up as good horse, or will he show up as the quirky horse? We'll have to see, but he'll be on my ticket also. Hopefully he'll show up as the good horse and maybe get a piece of it. I believe he is the 4-1 favorite in this one. The number 15 horse, another horse I do have on my ticket, McCracken, 5-1, Brian Hernandez Jr. This horse finished 3rd last time out in the Breeders' Cup in the Bluegrass at Keeneland a few weeks ago. Finished 3rd by 3/4 length. That's the favorite. He broke out that day and his wheels were spinning in the stretch. Wasn't his day to win. Really weakened out of it. It was very warm that day, so maybe he didn't get a piece of it. I'm not sure. Start before on February the 11th at Tampa Bay, mile 16th in the Sam F. Davis. This horse won by 1/4 lengths that day. It was a little bit wide at the quarter pole, but took off clear. A very nice victory closing up that day. He's the kind of horse that reminds me of Gunnevera. He'll be in the same spot where Gunnevera is going down the back stretch or going into the turn. I expect him to sit about the 8th or so. And, he'll close up well. Something nice to keep in mind about this horse. He's 3 for 3 at Churchill. He won the Kentucky Jockey Club over the surface. He won the Street Sense, and he broke his maiden over the surface. So he has experience over it. It's his home track. He's bred to go the 1.25 mile distance with Go Zapper and Awesome Again. Awesome Again won the Classic, and Awesome Again won the Classic in '98. He should get the distance. It just depends which horse shows up, because he was injured also a little bit, and he had to miss a few races. But watch out for this horse if he's fresh enough to run a big one here today. The number 16 horse, Tap Right, 20-1, Jose Ortiz. I don't think this horse is good enough to win. He did win the Tampa Bay Derby, but he closed off a little bit that day. But he was the best horse by a mile. That was a subpar Derby prep. He finished 5th in the Bluegrass, where he just had nothing that day. He kind of stopped that day at the start. He finished 2nd in the Sam F. Davis closing up that day. But those are subpar races. And in the really good race, he finished 5th, and it just wasn't his day to win. He'll have to do a lot to win. He's not a use for me. The number 17 horse, Irish Warcry, 6-1, Rajiv Marag for Grand Motion. Like everybody's saying, if Rajiv Marag could win this race, it would be the ultimate comeback. It would be the biggest comeback since what's his name? The big horse won the 98, or the horse won the 98 Churchill, the 98 Breeders' Cup mile over the surface, or was it 97, something like that. But this horse, he ran very well in the Wood Memorial a few weeks ago here in New York at Aqueduct. He won by 3.5 lengths. It was the best horse I think that day by a mile. Went off second choice though behind Battalion Runner, but this horse really showed his all. He set off the pace, got the lead, and took off clear. Easy, quite race for this horse. Got a tied Beyer speed figure of 101. Stopped before in the Fountain of Youth. This horse, as a very heavy favorite, just over evens. He finished 7th by 21 3/4 lengths. Was just off the pace early on, and then really weakened out of it. Wasn't his day to win. It was just a weird race. I can't explain that race at all. But he did win the Holy Bull before that on the lead all throughout, and won the Marylander at Laurel. He's trained by Grand Motion. Grand Motion won this race again in 2011 with Animal Kingdom. Keep in mind also, I believe no horse has ever won from 17. That's just nothing. That's garbage. You have to remember also that every year they used to never get a 20-horse field in Derby, they used to be always like 14-horse fields. Only in the past 15 years we've been seeing 20-horse fields a lot more. So there wasn't a lot of 17-horse fields in the Derby years ago. It just depends which horse shows up and where he gets placed in the race. If he's far back, I don't think he'll be closing up, but he'll have to be a little bit closer to win. Watch out for this horn if he can have a clear trip. The number 18 horse Gormley I wouldn't touch with a 5-foot pole. He's 15-1. Victor Espinosa. John Sheriff changed this one. John Sheriff won this race in 2005 with Giacomo. But, this horse did win the Santa Anita Derby. It was a very subpar prep race, because none of the horses, it was the slowest. It was the weakest prep race of the Derby Trail, I have to say. He got the lead because he kind of inherited it, but he didn't really, he didn't weaken out of it. He was weakening out of it because he inherited the lead, but he wasn't advancing either. It just, it was a weird race. No horse out of that Santa Anita Derby race I don't think will run very well. It just wasn't his, he inherited the victory, but it just wasn't the best of races. Start 4 in the San Felipe. This horse finished 4th that day. He just didn't do anything. Really weakened out of it. He did win the Sham, but that was against nobody. He finished 7th in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Won the Front Runner. His Grade 1 quality races when he faced really good horses, like in the Juvenile, he showed nothing. I expect him to show the same today, which is showing nothing. It's not going to be his day to win. The 19 horse Practical Joke. I'll use him also in a few tickets in my multi-race wager. 20-1, Joel Rosario for Chad Brown. Chad Brown was a longtime assistant, trained under the tutelage of Bobby Frankel. Bobby Frankel never won this Derby, which is a shame because he was a great trainer, but he did win the 2003 Belmont Stakes with Empire Maker. And this horse, he had a decent second place finish in the Bluegrass last time out. Third start around 2 turns. It wasn't a half bad race, but he wanted a little bit more. I could see this horse sitting closer, and he wants the mile and a quarter distance. He's gonna get today. If he could get over from the 19 hole and save some ground, I think you could see this horse at the end. He has to save ground though, which is gonna be very tough from the outside post draw. Start 4 in the Gulfstream Park and the Fountain of Youth, Grade 2 Fountain of Youth. Horse finished second by 5 3/4 lengths behind Gunnevera. Had to steady a few times, a little bit wide that day, but closed up a tiny bit after that. It was his first start since the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, where he did finish 3rd by 7 3/4 lengths. Had a horrible start, closed up a tiny bit at the end, but he needed a little extra ground. He was undefeated to start his career. He won the Champagne, the Hopeful, and the main special weight at Belmont and both at Saratoga. I think he'll be closing at the end if he gets a clear trip, so he'll be on some of my multi-race wager tickets. I also like the number, I don't like the number 20 horse. Forgot. The number 20 horse, Patch, at 30-1. A Todd Pletcher horse for Calumet Farm. He's not a use for me. Tyler Gaffalone gets his first Derby mounts. He finished second in the Louisiana Derby a few weeks ago, but he didn't show a lot that day. He broke a little bit. He inherited second, but he'll have to do a hell of a lot to win from the 20 hole. He broke his maiden start 4 in the main special weight for 38 Gulfstream 1 mile, February the 18th. Won by 1 3/4 lengths. Easy victory, but he'll have to improve so much today to win. He's not a use for me. Let's go to the also eligibles. Royal Mo. Out of the 2 also eligibles, I think he's the one that maybe could do anything, but that's not saying a lot either. He finished 3rd in that race I call the worst Derby trail race of the year, the Santa Anita Derby. He finished 3rd. He was just off the pace that day, and the jockey Gary Stevens doesn't do a lot wrong, but he did lose the whip that day in the stretch run, so didn't kind of weakened out of it. So but it just wasn't his day to win. In the Rebel at Oakland the week, 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before, whatever it was. His horse finished ninth by 11.5 lengths that day. Traveling, he just did not show up. He's 6-1. He had nothing that day. He did win the Robert Lewis on lead all throughout, but if he draws into this race, he likes going closer to the front. I don't think he'll get the lead from the 20 hole. He'll just have to do a hell of a lot to win. He's not my horse here today. The number 22 horse, Master Plan, another Todd Pletcher horse. He's at a Twirling Candy. Twirling Candy, I call a sprinter or a one-turn miler. He finished third in the UAE Derby a few weeks ago, made on the mud. He was closing a little bit at the end, but it wasn't a lot. Again, he'll have to do a lot to win. He's a closer. I think his better surface will be turf also. I think he'll have a very good turf career, but if he draws in, I don't expect him to do a lot. So those are my Derby, my thoughts on this year's Derby and the horses. So to recap my bets now. For the Kentucky Derby, race number 12 from Churchill Downs, the 143rd Kentucky Derby. My top 2 picks, I'm going to go to the 5 horse, Always Dreaming, as a top pick. I'm also going to use the number 10 horse, Gutierrez, as a top pick. My top 4 for the Derby is 5, 10, 4, 17. 5, 10, 4, 17. Along with those 4 horses in my multi-race pick 4, pick 3, and double wagers, I'll be also using the 2 horse, the 14 horse, the 15 horse, and the 19 horse. So those were the 2 horse, the 14 horse, the 15 horse, and the 19 horse. That's also using my top 4 horses. So those are the horses I'll be using in this year's Derby. Good luck to all, and please follow me on Twitter at HorseRacingKid5 for more selections for race courses around the world, and join me in about 2 weeks' time for the Preakness from Pimlico Racecourse. Can hardly wait. Good luck, everybody.